Machiavelli understood one law above all, the law of appearances. Men judge by their eyes rather than by their hands, he wrote. What you see controls you more than what you touch. The visible trumps the real, and in the 21st century, the visible has been weaponized in ways the Medici could never imagine. Here's what died first: your instinct to question, not your intelligence, your reflex. Think about it. When was the last time you questioned something that felt good? A notification, a compliment, a recommendation? You scroll, you click, you consume. No friction, no resistance. Bernays called it the engineering of consent, but he was working with newspapers and radio, crude tools. Machiavelli would have called it amateur hour. The modern version is seamless. It doesn't force compliance. It makes compliance feel like discovery. You think you chose the product, the opinion, the outrage, but the choice was architected, the path was laid, and Cialdini documented 6 weapons of influence: reciprocity, scarcity, authority, consistency, liking, consensus. Machiavelli knew them all. He just called them different names: obligation, fear, appearance, commitment, affection, in the herd. But here's the evolution. These weapons no longer operate in isolation. They've been layered, and you get a free trial that everyone is using, endorsed by someone you admire, and it's only available for 24 hours. Your brain doesn't stand a chance. Machiavelli said the prince must appear merciful, appear faithful, appear humane, religious, upright, but be ready to act opposite when fortune demands. The modern manipulator does the same. The brand appears generous, transparent, ethical, empowering while extracting data, attention, money, and compliance. And you don't resist. Why? Because skepticism was killed in childhood. You were taught to trust institutions, to respect credentials, to assume good faith. Machiavelli would laugh because a prince must learn to be able not to be good, and the corollary is assume others have learned the same. But you weren't taught that. You were taught the opposite. Trust the expert, follow the science, believe the narrative. And when you did question, you were labeled conspiracy theorist, contrarian, difficult. So you stopped. Not because you were stupid, because the social cost was too high. And that's how the first death happened. Skepticism didn't die from ignorance, it died from punishment. And every time you questioned the narrative and got socially exiled, your brain logged the pain. Cialdini called it social proof. We look to others to determine correct behavior. Machiavelli called it the necessity of appearing to have the qualities the crowd values. Either way, the result is the same. You self-censor, you conform, you comply. And the puppeteers don't even need strings anymore. You've internalized the script. But here's where it gets darker. The first death? Skepticism. That was just the setup. What died second? That's what made you human. And it's tied to a Machiavellian principle, so brutal, so efficient, that once you see it operating in your life, every interaction becomes a chess match. But we'll get there. First, you need to understand why. Why the second death was necessary. Machiavelli wrote something simple, something brutal, something true. The vulgar are always taken by appearances, and the world consists of the vulgar. Translation: most people are easy to fool, not because they're dumb, but because they don't pay attention. And that's what died second, your ability to focus. Focus long enough to see the pattern. Here's the test. Right now in this moment, how many tabs do you have open? How many apps are running? How many notifications are waiting? Your attention isn't just divided, it's shredded. And that's not an accident, it's a business model. Machiavelli said the prince must keep the minds of his subjects in suspense and wonder. And the modern version is keep them in perpetual distraction. You can't analyze what you can't focus on. You can't resist what you don't see. You can't fight what you don't remember. Bernays understood this in 1928. He didn't just sell products, he sold associations. And bacon and eggs aren't breakfast because of nutrition. They're breakfast because Bernays linked them to the authority of doctors, the appeal of a hearty American meal, and the social proof of millions. He didn't argue, he anchored. And once the anchor was set, your attention moved on. The modern version is faster, infinitely faster. You don't have time to question the bacon because you're already seeing the next ad, the next post, the next outrage. Machiavelli would recognize this immediately. He wrote that men are so simple and so ready to obey present necessities that he who deceives will always find someone who will let himself be deceived. The present necessity today is stimulation, novelty, dopamine, and the system is built to deliver it. Every app, every platform, every algorithm, optimized for one thing, keeping your eyes on the screen, not for your benefit, for theirs, because attention is the currency and you are the product. Machiavelli said the prince must control the perception of events, not just the events themselves. The modern manipulator controls the flow of perception. You're not given time to digest, reflect, or resist. You're given the next hit, and here's the cruelty. The system makes you blame yourself. You feel scattered, anxious, overwhelmed, and the response from the same platforms? Here's a mindfulness app, here's a productivity hack, here's a dopamine detox challenge. They sell you the disease, then sell you the cure. Machiavelli called it the art of appearing virtuous while being ruthless. They appear helpful while profiting from your fragmentation. But the second death goes deeper than distraction. It kills memory. And when your attention span is 3 seconds, you can't build a coherent narrative. You can't connect the dots. You can't remember what you were outraged about last week, let alone last year. And that makes you controllable. Machiavelli said, the ends justify the means. But he also knew something else. If the people forget the means, the ends become irrelevant. You can do anything to a population that doesn't remember. Change the narrative, rewrite the history, gaslight the collective. And by the time someone notices, the attention has moved on. Here's the proof. Think about the last major scandal, crisis, or controversy. What happened? Do you remember the resolution, or did it just fade, replaced by the next thing, the next outrage, the next distraction? Machiavelli wrote that the promise given was a necessity of the past. The word broken is a necessity of the present. In other words, promises don't matter if no one remembers them. And no one remembers, because the second death, attention, it ensures it. But there's a third death, and this one is the most insidious. The first death killed skepticism. The second killed attention. The third kills something deeper. Something Machiavelli spent half of The Prince warning about. And it's the reason why even when you see the manipulation, you don't act. We'll get there. But first you need to understand something. How these 3 deaths work together. Machiavelli's most misunderstood line. It is better to be feared than loved. If one cannot be both. People focus on fear and love. They miss the clause. If one cannot be both. Because the master doesn't choose fear or love. The master combines them. And when you combine them, you get something far more powerful than obedience. You get self-imposed submission. You get people who choose their chains. And that's what died third. Your agency, not your freedom, your belief in it. Here's how it works. You're given choices, hundreds of them, thousands. What to eat, what to watch, what to buy, what to believe. And the presence of choice feels like freedom. But Machiavelli knew the truth. The prince must make himself believe that every action is just and honorable. It's not about being just, it's about making them believe they're choosing justly. And the modern system is built on this. You're not forced to use the platform. You choose to. You're not forced to share your data. You consent. You're not forced to comply. You agree. Cialdini called it commitment and consistency. Once you make a choice, you defend it to maintain internal coherence. Machiavelli called it the illusion of virtue. Give them the appearance of choice, and they'll defend the cage. Either way, the result is the same. You become complicit in your own control. And here's the trap. The more choices you're given, the less power you have. And Bernays proved this in the 1920s when he didn't sell cigarettes to women by forcing them. He rebranded cigarettes as torches of freedom and let them choose rebellion. The choice felt empowering. The outcome was submission to the tobacco industry. Machiavelli would have called it genius because you don't conquer the people, You make them conquer themselves. Modern version? You're not told what to think. You're given the options. And the options are curated. You think you're choosing left or right, red or blue, outrage A or outrage B, but the menu was written by someone else. Machiavelli wrote that everyone sees what you appear to be. Few experience what you really are. The appearance is choice. The reality is a controlled menu. And the most elegant part is when you choose from the menu, you feel ownership, you defend it, you identify with it. That's the death of agency, not the removal of choice, the weaponization of it. And once agency dies, something terrifying happens. You stop asking why, you start asking which. Not should I participate in this system, but which version of the system do I prefer? Machiavelli knew this. He wrote that the one who adapts his policy to the times prospers, and likewise that the one whose policy clashes with the demands of the times does not. The system doesn't need you to love it, it needs you to adapt, and you do. Every day, every click, every scroll. You've adapted so completely that resistance doesn't even occur to you anymore. You're not oppressed, you're optimized, and optimization is just slavery with better branding. Machiavelli said men are so simple and yield so easily to the desires of the moment that he who will deceive will always find someone who will allow himself to be deceived. The desire of the moment today is convenience, comfort, confirmation, and the system delivers. But here's what you need to understand. These three deaths, skepticism, attention, agency, they're not separate, they're a sequence. First, they kill your reflex to question, then they kill your ability to focus. Focus long enough to see the pattern. Finally, they kill your belief that you could do anything about it even if you wanted to. And that's the murder of manipulation awareness. Not that you can't see manipulation, but that you've been conditioned not to look. But there's a way out, one principle, one shift, and it's hidden in the most dangerous chapter of The Prince, the one that cost Machiavelli his career, his reputation, and nearly his life. Because once you apply it, you can't be manipulated the same way again, but it requires something most people won't do. Machiavelli's most dangerous idea wasn't about power, it was about perception. How princes should keep faith. The answer? They shouldn't. Not because dishonesty is virtuous, but because virtue is a trap, and the prince who plays by the rules, honesty, loyalty, compassion, gets devoured by those who don't. And here's the key. Machiavelli wasn't teaching princes to be evil. He was teaching them to see clearly, to strip away the moral veneer and look at the mechanics. And that's the resurrection. You stop playing the game you were taught to play and start seeing the game that's actually being played. Not cynicism, clarity. Here's how it works in practice. When you see an ad, a post, a policy, a politician, you stop asking, is this good or bad? And start asking, who benefits? Cui bono? The oldest question in Roman law. Machiavelli used it constantly, not to be paranoid, but to be accurate. Because the truth is, most manipulation doesn't come from evil intent, it comes from incentive alignment. The platform isn't trying to ruin your attention span, it's trying to maximize quarterly revenue. The outcome is the same, but the mechanism is different. And once you see the mechanism, you see everything. The free service that makes billions selling your behavior, the empowerment narrative that keeps you dependent, the choice that was curated by an algorithm. Machiavelli wrote, "It is necessary for a prince wishing to hold his own to know how to do wrong and to make use of it or not according to necessity." Flip it. It's necessary for a person wishing to hold their own to know how wrong is done to them and to resist or adapt according to necessity. This is the resurrection of skepticism, not paranoia, pattern recognition. But skepticism alone isn't enough. You also need to resurrect attention. And here's where Machiavelli offers something unexpected. He said, the prince must be a fox to recognize traps and a lion to frighten wolves. The fox is intelligence. The lion is force, and most people today are neither. They're sheep, not because they're weak, because they're distracted. The fox can't recognize traps if he's chasing every shiny object. The lion can't frighten wolves if he's exhausted from fighting phantoms. So how do you resurrect attention? You shrink the battlefield. Machiavelli conquered Florence with 400 men because he knew the terrain, controlled the gates, and struck at the moment of maximum leverage. You can't fight 1,000 distractions, but you can control 3 variables: your inputs, your environment, your commitments. Cut the apps that fragment you. Control the rooms that shape you. Say no to the obligations that drain you. This isn't minimalism, it's strategic consolidation. And once your attention is consolidated, you can finally resurrect the third death, agency. Here's the secret. Agency isn't about having more choices. It's about making fewer, better ones. Machiavelli said, "The prince who relies upon fortune is lost when it changes." Translation: if you're reactive, you're controlled. And the modern version is if you're choosing from the menu, you're still being fed. Real agency is walking away from the menu, building your own, operating outside the system that's designed to capture you. Bernays would call this counter-propaganda. Cialdini would call it persuasion resistance. Machiavelli would just call it necessary. Because here's the reality. The system isn't going to give you permission to leave. It's not going to make it easy. It's going to offer you opt-out buttons that don't actually opt you out. Privacy settings that still harvest your data. Freedom that's just another product. And if you wait for the system to release you, you'll wait forever. So you don't wait. You take. Not violently, quietly. You stop feeding the machine your attention, your data, your outrage, and you become illegible to the algorithm. Machiavelli wrote that the prince must imitate the fox and the lion because the lion cannot defend himself against traps and the fox cannot defend himself against wolves. You can't outforce the system, but you can outthink it. And the moment you become unpredictable, unsellable, untrackable, you become free. But here's the cost. Freedom is lonely. The crowd doesn't celebrate the fox. They celebrate the sheep who stay in line, who consume the content, who play the game. And when you step outside, you'll be labeled difficult, paranoid, contrarian. Machiavelli knew this. He was exiled, tortured, and forgotten for telling the truth. But he also knew that the alternative, comfortable slavery, was worse. So the question isn't whether you'll be manipulated. You will. The question is, will you see it? And once you see it, will you act? There's one more thing, one Machiavellian principle. That ties it all together. It's the reason why this knowledge is dangerous, why most people won't use it, and why the few who do change the game entirely. Machiavelli's most misunderstood concept, virtù, not virtue. Virtù, it's not goodness, it's not morality, it's not ethics, it's effective power, the ability to impose your will on fortune, to act decisively in the face of chaos, to see what others miss and move while they hesitate. And it's the final piece of the resurrection. Because even if you see the manipulation, even if you reclaim your attention, even if you rebuild your agency, without virtù, you're just aware of your cage. You need the capacity to act. And here's what Machiavelli knew that modern self-help gurus don't. Action doesn't come from motivation. It doesn't come from inspiration. It doesn't come from finding your why. It comes from necessity, from the refusal to accept the unacceptable, from the recognition that inaction is a choice, and usually the worst one. Machiavelli wrote, "Fortune is the arbiter of half our actions, but she still leaves us to direct the other half." Half your life is chaos. Markets crash, platforms change, empires fall. You don't control that. But the other half, that's yours, and most people give it away. They give it to algorithms, to bosses, to systems, to the crowd. They wait for permission, they wait for the right time, they wait for certainty, and while they wait, the world moves. The manipulators move, the players move, and the waiters get left behind. Virtù is the refusal to wait, not recklessness. Precision under pressure. Here's the application. You've been manipulated 3 times today. You now see it. What do you do? Most people do nothing. They nod, they agree, they say, "Wow, that's crazy." And then they open the app again. They scroll, they comply, because awareness without action is just entertainment. And Machiavelli hated entertainment. He wrote The Prince as a manual, not a philosophy, a weapon. And if you treat this knowledge as philosophy, something to think about, discuss, admire, you've already lost. The manipulators don't philosophize. They execute, they test, they iterate, they scale. And while you're debating whether it's right to delete the app, they've already sold your data to 12 brokers and optimized the algorithm to make you angrier tomorrow. So here's the final secret, the one that separates the fox from the sheep. You don't fight the system by resisting it, you fight it by becoming illegible to it. You don't argue with the algorithm, you starve it. You don't debate the narrative, you build a new one. You don't ask for freedom, you take it. Machiavelli said, "The prince must have no other object or thought but war, its organization, and its discipline." Translate that to your life. You must have no other object than sovereignty over your time, your mind, your choices. And war in this context is the daily discipline of saying no to everything designed to capture you. Every notification is a siege. Every recommendation is a negotiation. Every personalized experience is a Trojan horse. And the only way to win is to stop letting them inside the gates. But here's where most people fail. They think sovereignty means isolation. It doesn't, because Machiavelli built alliances, he made deals, he worked with power structures when it served him and against them when it didn't. Sovereignty isn't about being alone, it's about being uncontrolled. You can engage with the system, you can use the tools, but you do it on your terms, not theirs. You use the platform, but you don't let the platform use you. You engage the market, but you don't let the market define you. You participate in society, but you don't let society dictate your reality. That's virtue, and it's the only thing that makes the other resurrections, skepticism, attention, agency, actually matter, because awareness without power is just suffering. You see the cage, but you can't leave. You see the manipulation, but you can't resist. You see the game, but you can't play, and that's worse than ignorance. So let's bring it full circle. The three deaths: skepticism, murdered by social punishment; attention, murdered by engineered distraction; agency, murdered by the illusion of choice; and the one resurrection, virtue, the ruthless clarity to see what's real and the disciplined power to act on it. Machiavelli didn't write The Prince to make you feel good. He wrote it to make you effective. And effectiveness in a world designed to manipulate you looks like this. You question everything, not emotionally, but mechanically. Who benefits? What's the incentive? Where's the trap? You don't assume good faith. You don't trust the appearance. You verify, you test, you observe. That's resurrected skepticism. You control your inputs, not occasionally, but systematically. You don't try to focus, you design for focus. You cut the noise, you shrink the battlefield. You build an environment where distraction has to work hard to reach you. That's resurrected attention. You act from sovereignty, not permission. You don't wait for the system to offer you freedom. You take the actions that make you free. You delete the app. You cancel the subscription. You say no. To the job, the relationship, the obligation that treats you as a resource. That's resurrected agency. And you do all of this with virtue, not as a moral crusade, but as a necessity. Because the world doesn't reward the aware, it rewards the effective. And if you see the game but don't play it better, you're just a conscious slave. Machiavelli would tell you this. The manipulators aren't going to stop, the platforms aren't going to change, the system isn't going to fix itself. It's going to get better at manipulating you, more precise, more personalized, more invisible. And the gap between those who see it and those who don't will widen. The sheep will get more docile. The foxes will get more dangerous. And the question is, which one are you? Not which one you want to be, which one you are. Because wanting is passive, being is active. And Machiavelli has no patience for passivity. You've been manipulated 3 times today. You saw 2 of them. By minute 5. The third, you're seeing it now. This video, this script, This entire structure was designed to keep you here. The open loops, the staccato rhythm, the Machiavellian references, the promise of forbidden knowledge. Every word calculated, every pause intentional. And you stayed. Not because you were forced, because you were hooked. And that's the point. You can't escape manipulation, but you can see it. And once you see it, in this video, in the algorithm, in your life, you have a choice. Keep watching or start building. The foxes are building. The question is, are you?